All right, so the next vote we're going to take up is on to here item C1, which is the staff presentation on the housing blueprint scorecard. Hear that next. So we'll go and vote on, I guess I probably start with I think I can make this as a chair. I'll go ahead and make this motion to make sure. Do I have a second on moving this up in the agenda, Commissioner Shea? So go ahead and we'll just vote on that. See how it works out. This is we'll hear this next if it's approved. Okay, I see. Oh, I see. Commissioner Seeger is voting against. So this will stay on the agenda. Go ahead, Commissioner Seeger.
Could you answer how long will those that have been waiting to hear their cases be postponed? How long are we going to allow for? Because there's a lot of information in this presentation, and I think there's going to be a lot of questions. So it could go on for a while.
Andrew, what did we have on our agenda time-wise?
Chair Commission Liaison Andrew Rivera with each discussion public hearing lasting anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. And we have 4 discussion cases. Okay.
So I guess my question, maybe I didn't ask the question. So how long are we giving staff for their presentation? Did you say 45 minutes?
Chair Commission Liaison Rivera. So by your rules, staff has 15 minutes for presentation, followed by the commission rule of Q&A.
Okay, so that could take about 30 minutes. So we are looking at, it could be about 45 minutes to get through it, Commissioner Seeger.
In sake of unity, I will vote to go forward, but I really hope that we don't ask the applicants and the interested parties to wait for hours.
And this is an area I know others have gotten tripped up. Do we need to do any kind of reconsideration on this one? Andrew, we didn't really finish the vote. Are we good? Should we just take a revote?
Chair, just out of abundance of conscience, if you could do a reconsideration and then followed by the vote.
Okay. So Commissioner Schneider.
I move to reconsider the vote upon which we just decided to not.
Do I have a second? Second by Giannis Polito. Let's go and vote on the reconsideration. All right, we've got unanimous there. So that one we can take up again. So again, this is to move up item C1 in the agenda and hear it next. And I went ahead and made that as motion as the chair. I had a second. Do I have a second, Commissioner Schneider? And let's go ahead and vote on taking this item up next in our agenda. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much for that. And with that, Andrew, do we have staff ready to go?
Sure, we should, but also if we could note for participants who are waiting on the first discussion case of B1 that they don't have to stay on the teleconference. They will receive a email from me when we are about 15 minutes away from taking up the item.
Okay, so you all heard that? Yeah, please, you don't need to stay on. Andrew will give you an email 15 minutes in advance from your item. And I guess with that, we're ready for staff if they're okay. I see something coming on. All right.
Thank you so much. This is Mandy DeMayo. I'm a community development administrator with the city's Housing and Planning Department. I appreciate you all taking the time to walk through this presentation with me today. I'll try to be brief and leave sufficient time for questions and answers at the end. If we can go to the next slide.
Yeah, hold
Chair, we're
on.
gonna
I
pause
think
for
we're
just a
waiting to
minute.
pull up your presentation.
The presentation isn't pulled up. Okay.
The-
If you all can just let me know, since I can't see, but I
Yeah.
can hear.
So this would be for staff, just the housing blueprint scorecard presentation, which was
Correct.
item C1.
That is not the,
Chair, we'll just need a minute. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm happy to say I see the presentation Austin Strategic Housing Blueprint scorecard on the screen.
fantastic. So I'll start over quickly. This is Mandy DeMeo. I'm the Community Development Administrator with the City of Austin's new Housing and Planning Department. And tonight we're going to be talking about the Austin Strategic Housing Blueprint Scorecard, which is the first scorecard since Council's adoption in 2017. This was created in partnership with Housing Works Austin, and we have a couple of folks, Woody Rogers and Nora Linares Miller, with Housing Works who will be available for question and answer. If you can go to the next slide, please. Just an overview of what we're going to talk about today in our brief time together. We're going to go over the history and an overview of the blueprint, the goals that are contained therein, the progress that we've made thus far, insights as a result of that progress and the tracking that we've done, and additional information. Next slide. First, we want to bring everyone up to speed on the Strategic Housing Blueprint and what we set out to achieve back in 2017, almost 4 years ago, when it was adopted by City Council. Next slide. You'll see an overview of the timeline. Again, 2017 was the Austin Strategic very first housing blueprint adopted by City Council. It's an addendum to Imagine Austin. In 2018, very important things happened, including voter approval of the $250 million in affordable housing general obligation bonds, which provided funding that really helps to advance the blueprint. In addition, Strategic Direction 2023 was adopted by Council, and that really solidifies the plans to execute economic opportunity and affordability programs and strategies for all Austinites. 2019, in earnest, became the implementation of the general obligation bonds, the blueprint, and SD 2023. And then in 2020, we released the very first 2018 and 2019 scorecards. In addition, we'll talk about this briefly, voters approved the $300 million anti-displacement funds as part of Project Connect. Next slide, please. Just as an overview, the blueprint really established goals for affordable housing across the spectrum, and it established a very clear time frame of 10 years with which to track the progress and outline clear, numeric, and trackable goals. It called on us to build partnerships and identified needed resources and funding mechanisms to get all of this work done. So next slide. In addition, the blueprint identified 5 community values that guide both stakeholder engagement as well as all of the goals that are outlined in the blueprint. You'll see those values are preventing households from being priced out of Austin, fostering equitable, integrated, and diverse communities, investing in housing for those most in need, creating new and affordable housing choices for all Austinites in all parts of Austin, and helping Austinites reduce their household costs. Next slide, please.
So real quick, can you just, I think we're one slide behind. What page are you on?
So I am on slide 7 right now.
Okay. All right. Let's jump ahead. There we go. We're caught up now. Thank you.
Okay. So slide 7, this is to let you all know that the blueprint doesn't operate in a vacuum. We are informed and aligned by a variety of different community studies, including UT Austin's Uprooted report, the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, the Mayor's Task Force for Institutional Racism and Systemic Inequities, the People's Plan, and then, of course, a variety of recommendations brought forward by the city's Anti-Displacement and Gentrification Task Force. Next slide. Goals. And we can just move straight on into the meat of the presentation, which is looking at the 7 goals identified in the housing blueprint. I want to give you a high-level overview. Goal 1 is telling us to distribute affordable housing production in all 10 city council districts. Goals 2 and 3 call for the creation of 135,000 units, housing units over 10 years. 60,000 of those units will be affordable to folks at or below 80% of the median family income, and then 75,000 of them are affordable to folks 80% and above. So you'll see that each of these goals also have sub-goals, ensuring a wide range of affordability across the spectrum. Goal 4 tells us to track housing unit counts in each district, including all new and existing housing units. Goal 5 tells us where those units should be created. It tells us to position 75% of the affordable housing unit creation along Imagine Austin centers and corridors, and 25% of those units should be proximate to high opportunity areas. Goal 6 directs us to preserve 10,000 affordable units over 10 years, and Goal 7 directs us to produce 100 permanent supportive housing units or continuum of care units for people experiencing homelessness each year. We can go to the next slide. And this is all about progress, which is really why we're here tonight. The big question we want to know is, how have we done thus far? Before we dive in, I want to point out a couple of things that are important. You'll notice right away that we're sitting here at the beginning of 2021, and we're presenting on 2018 and 2019 data, those scorecards. And that's for several really important reasons. One, we're only counting housing units as they are created, as they're past a certain point in time in the development process. As you all know better than just about anyone, on average, the development process can take a couple of years, the cycle. So it is expected that we wouldn't create significant progress in the first year of a 10-year plan. We're really starting to see the fruits of our labor right now. Second, the scorecard itself took time to create. We had to determine, pull together all the data, determine the accuracy, the sources, the methodology, and so that took us a little bit of time. Finally, 2020 was a busy and challenging year. During the pandemic, Housing Works and city staff have worked hard to achieve the completion of the scorecards for both 2018 and 2019 prior to the end of the calendar year, the 2020 calendar year. What we're going to be looking at is 2019 data because it is cumulative. And I see you're on slide 11 now, which really gets to the heart of the matter in terms of goals across districts. Goal 1. You'll see that we have some important designations here telling us whether we've made progress. That's the green triangle pointing upward. We've made slow progress. That's yellow/orange pointing to the right, or whether we're losing ground. Goal 1 was distributing affordable housing production across all 10 council districts. We're making progress, but slowly. You'll see that some council districts are making more progress and others are losing ground. For example, District 4 has seen only 65 units created out of the goal of 311, and District 2, we're at 115% of our stated goal. So again, this information is part of the 2019. It doesn't take into consideration 2020 yet, but it is cumulative from 2018 through 2019. Next slide. Again, for goals 2 and 3, together we're aiming for 135,000 affordable units over 10 years. Thus far, we've created a little over 16,000 units. Again, we're making progress, but slowly. 2 main reasons, namely the development lag that I mentioned previously. So any units that were triggered for production early in the 10-year time frame, we haven't necessarily seen come to fruition yet. And second, it was determined, and we should acknowledge that this was an extremely aggressive and ambitious goal when the blueprint was adopted, recognizing the incredible need for affordable housing and acknowledging just the sheer scope of resources that would be needed in order to achieve it. Next slide, you'll see goal 2, and this is related to the lowest income units that are needed. Production toward 20,000 units affordable to 30% and below median family income, we're losing ground. That's where we have an extraordinary amount of need. It's the most challenging affordable housing to create, certainly the most expensive. To date, again, through 2019, we had produced 118 units out of the desired 2,000 for the year. Again, the units are tough to deliver. They require a high subsidy. And sometimes require significantly higher leverage. The middle goal, which is really the 30 to 60% median family income, we're making progress. We delivered more than the annual production goal. This is the largest category of income restricted units, and we've made really strong progress, and we're pleased with that. And we could not have done that without our 2018 affordable housing bonds. The goal of 15,000 units affordable to between 60 and 80% median family income, we're losing ground in that category as well. We can go to the next slide. That'll get to our higher income units. Those are the 80 to 120% and above 120%. Again, you'll see that we're making progress, but there remains work to be done. Next slide, please. We should be on slide 15. This is goal 4, and goal 4 tells us that we have to track housing unit counts in each district. We determined that the data on this goal is not currently available. It will be available in 2023, which is the next time that we will conduct our 5-year comprehensive housing analysis, our market study for all new and existing housing units in the city. So we're going to pause on that goal until that time when we have current and available data. Next slide, please. Goal 5 tells us that we should be aligning our affordable housing with our transit and our Imagine Austin centers and corridors. 75% of the units should fall within a half mile of Imagine Austin centers and corridors, and 25% should fall within high opportunity areas where daily needs can be met with a short trip. We're making progress, a lot of progress, with the alignment with Imagine Austin centers and corridors. In fact, 96% of all housing units created have been within a half mile. So that is good news. As far as housing units created in high opportunity areas, we are losing ground with only 9% of all income restricted housing located within those designated high opportunity areas. Next slide. Preservation of affordable units. Again, goal 6 calls for the preservation of 10,000 units in 10 years or 1,000 units a year. We're making progress, but it's slow. As you'll note that through 2019, on an annual basis, we have produced 603 of those preservation units. Again, slow progress. Next slide. Goal 7 is related to creating housing for people experiencing homelessness. Our goal was 1,000 units over 10 years, so 1,000 units a year. Again, we are making progress, but it's slow progress. It's worth mentioning that this particular housing type is also subject to a development cycle with delays. The annual measure is expected to ramp up in the coming years as we have really honed in on our homelessness strategy. And we are working on getting the pipeline delivered more quickly so we can more quickly serve folks experiencing homelessness. Next slide is really insights. And I want to summarize these insights at high level. It's what we have gleaned by doing our data dives into both the 2018 and the 2019 scorecards. You can go to the next slide, which should be slide 20. Some really broad yet important takeaways. The Blueprint Scorecard analyzes and tracks progress toward achieving the 7 goals that are key to implementing the Blueprint and sustainably achieve affordability goals, expand housing opportunities throughout town, and ensure that Austin remains a welcoming city for all. We have made considerable progress towards achieving strategic housing blueprint goals in several areas, but there is significant work that remains. In order to achieve those goals, that is going to require leveraging existing funding sources strategically, increasing future funding opportunities, ensuring that existing regulations and programs align with affordability goals, expanding collaborations with nonprofit and private sector partners, and most importantly, continued progress also depends on a strong community commitment to address the needs of the most vulnerable and to create a more equitable and inclusive Austin. Already with voters, I mentioned Prop A, which is the additional infusion of $300 million for anti-displacement activities along the Project Connect corridors and lines. This work we anticipate will take on new momentum in the coming year. If we can go to the next slide. This just gives a high-level look at after 2 years of implementation under our belts. And it is a mixed bag, without a doubt. Significant progress, as we mentioned previously, in the 30 to 60% median family income production of units serving those households. Also, alignment between our affordable housing and our Imagine Austin centers and corridors. Areas that we really need to keep up the work, that is delivering deeply affordable units, that's 30% and below, income restricted units, and delivering deeply affordable permanent supportive housing and continuum of care units. Areas that need more focus, without a doubt, goal 1, disbursement of affordable housing across all 10 districts. We really need to pick up the pace of production of units, particularly serving households at the lowest income. We will, as mentioned previously on goal 4, track and report all housing by district in 2023. And then another area that will require intentional focus is increasing the pace of preservation of affordable units. I know that's a lot of information to digest. I want to make sure that we are directing you all to the appropriate places that are publicly available. So if we go to the next slide, which is slide 23, you will see where the Blueprint Scorecard is publicly available. It is at austintexas.gov/blueprint. And on this webpage, you'll find, of course, the Austin Strategic Housing Blueprint from 2017. the 2018 and 2019 sources, methodology, summary, and scorecard for each of those years, a glossary of common terms, related reports, strategies, and planning documents, and then, of course, we can provide hard copies upon request. We are providing this information to a variety of commission and committee meetings, including we did a brief presentation to the Community Development Commission in January. We will also be providing a brief overview to the Housing and Planning Committee on February 23rd. And just so folks know, the annual scorecard will be produced from here on out, starting with 2020's report card being available in early 2021. So it's something that we can expect on an annual basis.
Okay.
If you can go to the next slide or skip over.
Well, we are at the end of our time. Do you want to just say some closing remarks? But we will have questions. So just a few last points.
Just so you all know, additional progress has been made on missing middle housing, multi-bedroom housing, transit access. And in addition, in terms of tools that we're using to get affordable housing, we have looked at the production as a result of Affordability Unlocked, vertical mixed use, university neighborhood overlay. We are happy to take questions. I know that was a whole lot of information. So I welcome any questions, observations, and we are here.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really like this kind of the visual. It's very easy to glean where the progress we've made. And so I like the presentation. So we have commissioners. I guess if we could see, there we go. Questions? I'm looking around the room. Who has the first question? Commissioner Thompson.
I had a couple of questions, and one maybe is just a comment. Again, really thanks a lot for this. This is, I thought, really, great reporting, great visualization. Really helps us get to the numbers to see exactly how things are going. I did want to make sure that everybody is clear. If we think back about the strategic blueprint and where we came from and how we got those numbers, I mean, I think there were some projections about how much Austin would grow in the next 10 years. And then from that, sort of extrapolated, this is how much housing we need. And so I just sort of wanted to maybe sort of clarify a little bit on some of the targets. If we hit the target, we're actually just achieving houses for the people who are coming here. So when we talk about we're making progress versus, we're falling behind or we're making slow progress, if we're under 100%, we're not building enough houses for the people who are arriving in Austin. And especially if it's affordable housing, we're not building enough affordable housing for the people who are coming to Austin. So we're not hitting the target. So if we're slightly above 100%, we're slightly making progress. And if we're below that 100%, we're losing ground. And we're losing ground in affordability. So I just kind of wanted to maybe make some clarity on some of the numbers that are now yellow at 80 and 90%. We're losing ground at 80 or 90%. But then I did have a question. Go ahead.
I did just want to clarify that part of the data we're looking at, yes, this takes into consideration growth and the natural growth in the city of Austin, but we're looking at not just housing necessary for folks who are coming to the city of Austin, but housing necessary for the folks who live here now. One thing we have found in our comprehensive housing market analysis is that we have a lot of low-wage workers who are paying more than what is recommended, 30% of your adjusted gross income. So they're paying double what they should be paying. They're stretching their budgets. And so we need to provide more affordability for folks who are living and working in Austin now. So I just wanted to clarify.
I totally agree with that. And I completely support that. And I think you guys are doing a great job. And I want to congratulate you on that. I just want to say that, when we say we're gaining ground, yes, we're building more affordable housing, but if we're not hitting that number, that 100% of the target, that means, people are going to be even more people who are struggling to find affordable housing in Austin, or, worse, they're not going to be in Austin, and they're going to go somewhere else. Right. And that's also the concern is, that median family income is just going to go higher and higher as the only people who come here are the people who can afford the housing that's available. So we're not gaining ground for the people who are here if we can't, support those targets is all I was trying to get to. I did have a question, sorry, before my time's up, is on that, I think it was page 11, you had sort of a circle, and there were sort of two different colors, and I couldn't quite get what the two different colors meant, and I didn't know if that was like the on track target for the year versus how much we had achieved, or 1 year versus 2 year. What? Maybe you could show up page 11 again.
I think it's page 12 or slide 12.
Okay.
Folks want to go to that. And this is kind of our target overall for the 135,000 units. And the different colors that are being shown represent the lighter orange and the darker orange. It's the 2018 and the 2019 progress. Ideally, when we get to 2027 and we're in year 10, this entire circle will be filled up because we will have met our goals. We're obviously not there yet, but that's what the different colors are showing.
Okay, that was good. Those were the only two comments or questions I had. Thanks.
Chair, you're on mute.
I think you're on mute, Chair.
Well, I had a lot to say there too. Okay, okay, Commissioner Shea, Commissioner Conley, and Commissioner Yanis Polito. If we could go in that order, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I think this is something that we've been wanting to see ever since we came up with this housing blueprint. And I feel like, what I hear is that you have a little bit of optimism because of, the funding that is coming in, and also because there's the lag time between when we created this and then all the planning that needs to be to start hitting that. And again, I feel like there's optimism because you're telling me, you're kind of telling us that it's coming up. But my biggest concern right now, being, in the real estate industry and seeing all this growth and that's coming here, so many economic catalysts coming here to Austin, and even always getting a feel for the pulse of the market of the home buying of what's going on. I mean, we have situations now that homes are like jumping from month to month. Like people are asking, getting 20-30% above asking prices on their homes, and there's like 100 offers on homes. So there's an incredible demand that's coming, and we aren't even building enough housing fast enough. And that's not just here for Austin; it goes the full Austin metro. And at the same time, these these economic catalysts, like for instance, the Apple campus, Oracle coming, we have Tesla, we have Amazon hubs, all these things are under construction. I mean, at what point are we going to have to look at our housing blueprint and said all these goals that we had was based upon a different trajectory? For instance, that was designed to go something like this. Well, we're actually at a critical time in Austin that this wasn't planned. It's this. It's actually kind of going up this exponential curve up now. Do we need to re-examine the blueprint and reassess our goals, with what we know of what's actually happening in Austin right now? And then with that, how much of the limitations is based upon the code that we have? That because when this came about, we thought about having Code Next or Code Next come in to help us with this thing, but right now we have none of that. So are we going to have to, in order to deal with the new curve, where are we on, how are we, how do you feel we are on our set of tools? I mean, are we way behind and we got to get something going? I mean, I don't know. So I'd like to kind of get your take on that and your feel of moving forward from year to year to year, with what's really happening versus our, 2019 housing blueprint or 17. Yeah.
So to one of your questions, I am forever the optimist. And I do recognize that a lot of our investments take time to come to fruition. So as an example, last fiscal year, we invested, this is not what we incentivized through density bonus programs, but just our straight up city investment, a variety of different funding sources, including our general obligation bonds. And we approved more than 1,000 units of income restricted housing. And that includes housing for people experiencing homelessness. It includes home ownership, first-time home ownership, really a range of housing across the spectrum. That is going to come to fruition in the next couple of years. I'm super excited about that. In addition, as part of the 2018 bonds, we have funding. Our council was very forward-thinking and tasked us with strategic land acquisition. So Austin Housing Finance Corporation, which is a subsidiary of the city of Austin, we have purchased a range of vacant land, as well as some hotels for our motel conversion strategy for people experiencing homelessness. But a range of vacant land on which to develop affordable housing down the road. So this is not for us to develop, but for us to put out for disposition, so a formal solicitation for affordable housing. We have now housing opportunities in almost every city council district. So I'm really excited about that for the long term in terms of our strategy for creating affordable housing down the road. In terms of whether or not we need to recalibrate, our goals were created, again, they were created in 2017. They were ambitious, and they did take into consideration not just growth within the city of Austin. One of the concerns that was raised was that we didn't just take into consideration our city growth, but really capturing a share of the regional growth as well, recognizing that we wanted to be a city where everybody who was working in the city of Austin could live in the city of Austin rather than pushing folks, particularly lower income folks, farther and farther away. So we did take that into consideration, capturing the regional growth.
Let's go and move to Commissioner Conley, and then after that we'll have Commissioner Yanis Polito.
Hi, I think you'll get a chance to sort of continue that line of thought with the questions I want to ask. But I really kind of want to play the role here first of just sort of being the person to state the obvious. But I think, with regards to goal one, I think it is important to state the fact that the districts that really are doing their part or going above and beyond doing their part in terms of taking on the affordable housing stock for our city continue to be the districts that are historically the people of color districts, the working class districts with the lowest incomes in the city. So you see districts 1, 2, and 3 really doing their part, but you don't see districts 4, 5, 6, 8 or 9 stepping up. And for me, the fact that again, it is the sort of districts that are the most vulnerable to displacement that are doing all the heavy lifting in terms of our affordable housing stock speaks to structural racism, if I've ever seen it. But to that point, I wanted to ask a couple of questions about goal one. And one is about the Imagine Austin centers. I noticed that, we have 75% of our affordable housing is supposed to be near our Imagine Austin centers and corridors, but those are overwhelmingly in East Austin. There are virtually none of them in west of Mopac or in West Austin. So I wonder if we need to possibly reconsider some of our Imagine Austin centers so that we can have a more equitable distribution of housing. That's one question.
Okay, so I'll try to tackle that one. That was a subject of much conversation during the conversation in 2017 around the strategic housing blueprint. I will point out that we have, while 75% of our units are supposed to be in alignment with Imagine Austin centers and corridors, we also have that 25% in quote unquote high opportunity areas, which just broadly are not just west of I-35, they're west of MOPAC. And that is an area that without a doubt is challenging to get affordable housing. Again, forever the optimist. I will say that in this year's round of 9% low-income housing tax credit applications, which Council just provided resolutions of support, the two highest scoring applications, while they're technically in District 7, one is across from McCallum High School in the Brentwood neighborhood, and the other is in the Arboretum area, both considered high opportunity areas. So we're very excited about that. And we're always trying to balance gentrifying development of affordable housing in gentrifying areas with quote unquote high opportunity areas. We've also been very strategic about those council districts that tend to have fewer affordable housing units on the ground, and that would be District 6, 8, and 10 primarily. And we have been purchasing land. We have 2 parcels in District 6, again, using the 2018 affordable housing bonds. And we're working on a land assemblage in District 8 that we're really excited about. We have 1 parcel, and we're working to acquire an additional 2 surrounding parcels. And again, that will be put out for disposition through a competitive solicitation for the creation of affordable housing. It doesn't solve the problem that we're facing with disparities across city council districts in terms of taking on affordable housing as both a challenge and an enormous opportunity for folks living in those city council districts. But when I do look at the distribution of affordable housing, I am certainly seeing an increase in those council districts in the near future. I think the 2020 scorecard and certainly the 2021 scorecard are going to look a whole lot. We're going to see more green arrows making progress.
And if I could just follow up on that, also, I think earlier I made a comment about District 4, which I was confused, but I wanted to say something about, I know the land development code obviously is frozen. There would have been a lot of opportunity with the new land development code to sort of fight to get more of that affordable housing in West Austin. But I wonder, has more thought been put into ways in which we could sort of calibrate our bonus program to sort of make up for the difference in the fact that the land really is more expensive in high opportunity areas? And is there ways that we could sort of more aggressively pursue opportunities for affordable housing in those areas?
So we are looking at...
I ran out of time.
Oh. Okay.
I'm happy to continue that line of questioning, Mandy, if you want to go ahead and answer.
Sure. I was just going to say we are looking at, of course, land development code is on pause, as everybody knows. But one of the slides that we didn't really get to was digging into Affordability Unlocked, which came to fruition after the creation of the Strategic Housing Blueprint. We are seeing a significant number. These aren't units on the ground yet. These are projects that have been certified through Affordability Unlocked, so they're planned units. But to date, we're seeing 1,800 units in that 30 to 60% median family income in development right now. So I think there are opportunities through some creative programs, kind of a give and a get, and Affordability Unlocked is a really good example. And that is being taken advantage of, I should say, across the city. I know our 9% LIHTC applications are counting on it, so that includes District 7 west of MOPAC, counting on it in order to get some additional entitlements in exchange for that deeper affordability.
Thank you. I have a couple of other questions, so I'll try to be quick. But in considering, do we need to reassess the blueprint? I did understand it as far-reaching, and I had a critique of the blueprint from the very beginning around the city creating such strong benchmarks around housing that is available to people at 121% median family income and up. Just because I see the role of municipal layers and regulation in our public process as ways of interrupting the market that otherwise, left to its own devices. I think our building has been record highs. We've built tons of new housing. We continue to approve new development. And yet building costs are going up so quickly, in addition to the speculative opportunity here in Austin and the demands and people leaving larger cities to move to cities like Austin who have a lot more to pay than the average person who just needs shelter. So with that in mind, my question is there, first of all, what does it look like to prioritize around that 121 and up when we see we've only produced 210 units below 30, like a 30% MFI and below? What does better success look like, in y'all's opinion, around generating more units? I mean, what do those units look like? What is it that we need more of to address the places where it's hardest to bring the actual costs down?
So I'm hoping this is going to address your question, but I did want to clarify that while we have the Strategic Housing Blueprint has an overall goal of 135,000 units across the spectrum, our focus as a department through both our subsidy, so our direct dollars that we provide, and our incentives through our density bonus program is the lower income scales. Our direct subsidy, we only subsidize housing at 50% and below median family income, and we prioritize 30% and below. So that's where our direct subsidy goes from a rental perspective. From an ownership, it's 80% and below. Our density bonus programs can sometimes go up to that. I'm thinking of downtown density bonus can go up to 120%, but we don't necessarily, we don't at all have any programs that provide any subsidy or incentive for 120% and above.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off just because I have a couple other questions, and I totally hear you. It's more just about the representation of the blueprint itself, and the fact that I've always found that a little bit distracting from that. So I really just want to dig in more, and I can talk to you offline about this as well, of what it looks like to successfully generate more than those 210 units. In particular. And I know a lot of that is outside of our code, as is so much of the crazy cost of housing. And so with respect to that, I guess I did just want to ask, I would love to think about what's not locked up. I mean, it's not that we can't make any changes to our land development code. We can't do a comprehensive rewrite and violate protest rights and notification, but we can get stuff voted on with 9 votes and could potentially calibrate tools. So if you have ideas there, I'd love to hear them. But otherwise, I just want to quickly ask, because I'm out of time, will this be up on the website soon?
It is up on the website.
It says 2020 is coming soon. It's not up there right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. You mean the 2020. So just 2018 and 2019 are on the Blueprint website, austintexas.gov/blueprint. 2020 is coming soon, and I don't know if our Housing Works friends are on the line. They might be able to give you a better idea, but my understanding is it's going to be spring, so in the coming months it will be up, and then thereafter every year.
Okay, sorry about that. I ate up your time, but I will get with you offline. Thanks, y'all.
Okay, great.
Chair, you're muted.
Commissioner Howard, did you raise your hand? Do you have a question?
I did.
Okay.
Well, I just want to echo the sentiments of other commissioners about, for the great presentation. Being one in the trenches, I mean, it just moves me to think about the state of where we are and the challenges that we face day to day, thinking about affordable housing, and particularly as the 30% units. I mean, I think that if someone had good ideas about how to make that happen and incentivize that, I think that it would go a long way. But I know that we hear the challenges all the time related to development. But I was particularly interested in two things. One is the density bonus and thoughts about how to move that further. I think it certainly doesn't really provide the kind of incentives that folks are looking for in order to really justify taking full advantage of it. And then I think the other question I guess I had was, or was very interested in, is about the strategic acquisition. I really think that is it's not a new idea, but if we really expect to look at seeing reasonably affordable housing in areas of high opportunity, I think that the strategic acquisition is definitely will move us further in that direction. So can you talk more about that thought process and are there plans to, how aggressive will we be in as it relates to strategic acquisition? And then maybe a little bit about the density bonus, if you would.
Sure. I'll start with acquisition. So as part of the 2018 Affordable Housing Bond, voters approved $100 million out of the $250 million for strategic acquisition for Austin Housing Finance Corporation to go forth and acquire land or acquire property. So it could include development. Out of that, $80 million, we're on a 5-year spend plan. So $80 million out of the $100 million has been appropriated. And out of that $80 million, approximately $75 million has been committed thus far. That has included vacant land. We really prioritized, just like we do with our direct subsidy, we prioritize proximity to transit, proximity to areas of opportunity. And so we have a variety of sites that we've acquired in District 5, District 8, District 1, District 2, District 4. I'd have to go back and look at the inventory, but we also acquired a portfolio of single-family homes that we are converting to our community land trust, and they'll be available. We're rehabbing them right now. They're in 4 different city council districts, including District 6 near the Apple campus. They will become available for first-time home buyers once they are rehabilitated at or below 80% median family income. So we've really got a range of assets. We are working on disposition. So every year we have been purchasing property. We're also working on the disposition because, of course, we're not interested in just owning property for property's sake. The idea is to get it into the hands of nonprofit and for-profit private developers to convert it into income-restricted housing. So last year we did our first 2 parcels that are working their way through the development process right now, but we anticipate hopefully turning dirt on one of those within a year, which is at 900 Gardner Street. And it's a partnership between the Vecino Group, which is a national low-income housing tax credit developer, and Caritas. Of course, Caritas of Austin, a nonprofit service provider. They'll be providing family units, including some units for people from the continuum of care. And then there's also a portion of the property that will be developed into first-time home ownership by Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation. So again, we're looking at this as a long-term plan, acquisition, and then disposition, so that the community can see affordable income-restricted housing sooner rather than later. The other question was related to density bonus program.
Manny, before you go on, could I just ask, the proceeds that you receive from the sale of the land, is that going to go back into the same initiative, or how does that work? I mean, so.
Yes, but I will say we're generally not inclined to sell the land. We're generally inclined to do a long-term lease, so that the asset can be held in perpetuity by Austin Housing Finance Corporation as an instrumentality of the city of Austin. But yes, any development proceeds go back into our housing assistance fund, that ultimately gets deployed for affordable housing.
So let's go ahead and move to the next commissioner. I don't know if there was I think there were some unanswered questions there. Somebody wants to continue with that thread, Commissioner Schneider.
Thanks, and just echo again the appreciation for staff's work on the report, and really everything that you and all of the city staff is doing to help us meet these goals. So I had a couple of questions. One was a bit of a theme that has come up, but also, I've heard what you said about the bond allocations and what we've been spending so far from the housing bond and from the more recent transportation bond. So my first question is that sufficient? Like, are we going to meet our goals especially for the under 60% MFI housing, that the goals that we already have? And I guess my second question is, what we see at the Planning Commission is more of the bonus program commitments that people are making, that developers are making, that are typically 80%, sometimes 60%, sometimes lower. And to the previous question that was raised, do you have recommendations? Are you developing recommendations for how we might tweak the bonus programs or adopt additional bonus programs to help us meet the goals for around 80%, which it seems we're quite behind on?
Yeah. So to your first question, are the resources enough? The answer is no, unfortunately. When the blueprint was created, we just, back of the napkin looked at what this would cost to create these housing units, not the above market, but certainly the below market. And we were looking at about an $11 billion investment. There's just not enough funds, right, to get done what we need to get done. What we know is that we can make significant progress through a variety of means. Some of that is land development code and density bonus program. Some of it is direct subsidy. And certainly all along the way, leveraging our dollars with additional dollars. And we try really hard through our direct subsidy to accomplish that. We challenge all of our developers, whether small nonprofit or large for-profit, to bring additional resources to the table, because what we know is that we can't subsidize our way directly out of this challenge that we have. So we've got to be a whole lot more creative. With respect to the density bonus, which I think was part of the question that Commissioner Howard was getting to, we've seen some success with our density bonus programs. We know that they need to be recalibrated and looked at more holistically. They were created kind of piecemeal over time to address specific issues and specific geographies. We had made some pretty comprehensive recommendations as part of the land development code. I will defer to folks smarter than me about the land development code, about what the status is and what we could tackle outside of the process that has been stymied thus far. We have recommendations, and again, they were incorporated into the land development code rewrite, and we're on pause right now with respect to those comprehensive recommendations. We are looking at the Smart Housing Program, which is an incentive program. It's not a density bonus program, but we're looking at ways in which we can kind of tackle some low-hanging fruit from a more administrative perspective to make that program more effective. And again, that's not a density bonus program, but we're trying to tackle what we can in-house and administratively in order to make those programs more effective and stretch our resources farther.
When do you think you might have the recommendations for changes to SMART?
We are just kicking off kind of a mini stakeholder process and I don't think it'll be until sometime probably in March or April until we have that first kind of public engagement.
Okay, Commissioner Azar?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to staff for this great presentation and sort of answering through some of our questions. Mr. Mayo, I had a question regarding goal 2. We see that, the 61 to 80% MFI, we're meeting less than 1/5 of our goal. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that for the 61 to 80% MFI level, we currently have no funding programs for rental housing. We have some for homeownership, and we have very few density bonuses that serve renters at this level. Can you speak to how do we intend to fill this 61 to 80% gap and why we're seeing this shortage at this level?
So one of the ways that was called out in the blueprint that we would help to fill this gap, again, it most likely would not be direct subsidy because that's not where our subsidy dollars go. Our density bonuses like vertical mixed use can often go to that 60 to 80%, but again, it's not producing large amounts of units. And so this is really where our partners in preservation, like Affordable Central Texas, can come in handy, as well as our low-income housing tax credit developers. Even though their focus is on 60% and below units, they are able to now, through federal regulations around income averaging, incorporate 80%, 60 to 80% units. So a lot of these developments that we're seeing, we call them mixed income because they do range from 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%, up to 80% units. So they are mixed income. We're seeing a sprinkling of those units. So in short, I would anticipate that really where we'd want to put our focus is in our low-income housing tax credit or LIHTC developments, where we're going to see as an ancillary effect, we're going to see those 60 to 80% units. Again, we're not subsidizing those, but those are part of the developments that we're seeing come forward, as well as partners, private nonprofit partners like Affordable Central Texas. They just acquired and preserved their 5th, I believe that's correct, 5th market affordable, what we call naturally occurring affordable housing development, where they are preserving, one, they're accepting housing choice vouchers at all of their properties, and then they're preserving a certain percentage of the units for folks at or below 80% median family income, and ensuring that they are targeting any rent increases to cost of living, not to what the market is demanding. So I think there are some opportunities with some of those partnerships.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. And my other and I guess I do want to point here that the density bonuses can play a role here in filling that gap of 61 to 80, and we've seen that some of our current programs provide that, as you're saying. I also had a question. I just want to hit on a question that Commissioner Conley had asked regarding sort of goal 5. So we do see that we're meeting our centers and corridors goals, but we're not meeting our high opportunity goals at the same time. And one of the things it calls into is that our high opportunity areas have very few centers and corridors where we can direct that kind of housing. Since this is now the Housing and Planning Department, it opens up all sorts of opportunities that we did not have before. Is there any conversation on the planning side to amend our growth concept plan so we have more equitable centers and corridors, ensuring that there's more in the western half of our city?
I actually cannot speak to that. That is a fantastic question, Commissioner Azar. And I will take that back to my friends in planning, and we'll have to get back to you on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And if I have the time, I'll quickly ask on goal 3, where it's 81 and above. So we're not meeting that goal. We're sort of like in the middle of it. This is, again, we're not where we have any density bonuses. This is not where we provide any funding. It is sort of where we expect our market to provide housing on its own without sort of any influence from the city. Is there any understanding from staff why we're not meeting that goal? Is it just that overall global and national housing market? Is it to do with our regulation environment? What do we expect is the reason for this?
I would venture to guess that one of the reasons is just the really tight market we're in right now. and the fact that occupancy, despite the fact that we're in a global pandemic, occupancy is incredibly high. And we're not seeing what we commonly think of as filtering, where units, as they age, the rents become more attainable and maybe naturally can fall into that 80 to 120%, whereas when they were brand new, they were Class A and they were a much higher rent. We're not seeing that that level of filtering in the market in general.
Okay, commissioners, we have one more slot if somebody has questions who has not asked. Do we have anyone? All right. Well, again, we have no action on this. I really enjoyed the presentation. Thank you so much. And I will comment that a lot of folks, while I've been here, we've had many commissioners, but we have always advocated for changing the growth maps. It's been one thing we all agree on. So it's hopefully that'll get looked at in the next version of the comprehensive plan. Hopefully we'll get it done. Well,
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. So, well, we're getting a lot done, but we still have a whole bunch of public hearings here to knock out. But that was